have continuous integration for Plone packages. By the way, I'm in no way affiliated with Travis CI GmbH, German company. I'm just a really happy user.
Sorry.
I didn't turn it on.
Oh, of course. Okay.
Is it better now?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, easy and fun continuous integration for your Plone project. And I'm not affiliated with Travis CI. I'm just a happy user. So Travis CI is they say that they're a hosted continuous integration for the open source community, meaning that you can have your open source projects up there and they run your tests for you. So continuous integration, the whole idea is that you should run your tests often, preferably on every commit. So every time the code changes, you should run all the tests. So you know if something broke. And you should also run this test in a clean environment that is always built from scratch. So you know there's not something that is on your development machine that makes the environment pass, but you always start from scratch for a clean start. That's really, really useful for stuff like sprints, where you have new developers joining the project. And it has happened to me several times that people come to me and say, your build out is broken, it doesn't work for me, and you should fix it. And then we spend 2 hours figuring out what it was, only to find out that this new developer's machine was in some way broken. If you have a continuous integration server set up, you can be pretty sure that it's not the build out that's broken, but it's developer machines that's broken, because the tests run on your machine, which is like completely hacked up developer machine, plus on a clean Ubuntu install. So if it runs on your machine plus an Ubuntu install and all tests pass, and somebody comes and says it does not run on my Linux machine, it's probably his or her fault. And in sprints where time is valuable, that is really, really useful, because you can just say, look, it runs on a clean Ubuntu. Obviously, there's something wrong with your machine. Can you just please investigate what that is before taking everybody else's time? Or assign someone who has build-out knowledge to help them out. Yeah. So that's continuous integration. And Travis, in a way, is kind of like having Jenkins for GitHub. They don't use Jenkins in the background, but Jenkins is a word that's been thrown around in the last couple of years a lot. And Plone uses Jenkins. We have a jenkins.plone.org installation where we run huge integrated builds for Plone. And yeah, Travis in a way is like having an automated, you don't have to care about Jenkins installation for stuff that you have on GitHub. So when you go to GitHub, Travis, and select one of the packages, this is the screen you see. This is an example of a collective tutorial.todo app. By the way, if somebody has not seen this tutorial, you should definitely go through it. It will show you how to use dexterity and a simple view to create a very simple to-do application in Plone with the latest best practices. So there are tests in there. The thing is tested on Travis. It's documented, stuff like that. Just check it out and see what the latest best practices are. Back to Travis. This is the view you get when you open up a certain package on Travis. You get just the list of recent builds, what the commit message was, and how long it took, and of course how far away in the past it was. If you scroll down, if you select if you select one build, you get the build details, like what's the environment and which commit it was, and you have a bunch of useful links so you can see the diffs and stuff like that. And then on a single build, if you scroll down, you get the full console log. And then at the end of your console log, normally you have your test output, and if you also do syntax checks, those are going to be there. And as we can see, this build was successful because the script exited with zero exit code. So whenever you have an exit code that is not zero, you get a build failure. Whenever you have a zero, you have a build success. And that's basically it. So Travis is free for any GitHub repository out there. It's very simple to set up. We'll see how to do that later. They already ran a huge amount of tests for a huge amount of open source projects and repositories. And they do that so far for free for all open source projects. The code is public. They're crowdfunded. They've raised a considerable amount of money from donations from random people using them. And they have recently started to deploy a Travis Pro, which is kind of a paid subscription for your private builds. So the public codes is still can still be tested on Travis for free. But if you have private repositories, you can now actually pay those guys to also test your private repositories. And they support a number of different programming languages, of course Python included. And if you're using any of those, any of other databases other than ZODB, they also have those pre-installed. You just have to enable them in the config and then play around with them. So getting started with Travis, very simple. You sign into their website with your GitHub login. Basically, you just allow the Travis to access your GitHub account. Then you get a list of your repositories. You just click enable on one of them. You add a Travis YAML file that that configures how your build should be run, and then you push the Travis YAML. And that's it. The minimal config for a Plone project could look something like that. I'm specifically using Python 2.7 here because I want everyone to upgrade from 2.6. I guess it's just better. And basically what you do, you tell Travis that you want to use Python. Then you have the install commands, which are completely arbitrary. Anything can be up there. In our case, you're going to run bootstrap, and then you're going to run build out. And then for the script command, you run tests with bin test or whatever your test command is. And that's basically it. Like, no, with Jenkins, it gets complicated. I remember I tried to use jenkins.plone.org for my Google Summer of Code project last year, and it's quite complex to configure that thing. It has like a good couple of pages of configuration. You have to know what to choose and which slave you have to choose, and it's kind of complex. But with Travis, it's really like this couple of lines of configuration, and that's it. And that's why it's so much fun. You don't have to get lost in docs and examples. Just that's it. If you need more control, you can do more stuff like before installing any additional packages. You can, in our case, the install would be bin build out, and then you have the before script and after script. The before script sets up some stuff that you need in your testing environment, should you need that. And then the after script you can use to upload the results of the test or screenshots or stuff like that to some other service. Because at this point, one of the drawbacks of Travis is that you only get at the end of your build, you only get the console output from whatever you're doing, which is compared to Jenkins a bit of a drawback, because Jenkins, you can set up Jenkins in a way that it gives you all these sorts of events and coverage and reports and coverage reports and syntax reports. Travis may do that sometime in the future. They say they're going to do it. We'll see when and if. Yeah. Moving on to pre-installed services. So they use Ubuntu images. I think they use the latest long-term support release of Ubuntu, and they have a bunch of stuff already pre-installed on that image, and you just have to enable that, as we can see here. You can also do headless testing, which is pretty cool. I think you were just talking about that, Timo. They have XVFB, so the X virtual frame buffer installed on there with Firefox, so you can actually run like browser tests on Travis, even though you don't have an actual user, I mean the GUI. So moving on with configuration, if you need more power on the config side, you can blacklist or whitelist branches. That's really cool if you're doing something really funky and you know your test is going to break, and you don't want everybody in your development team receiving emails that you're breaking tests. You can just blacklist them. Or if you do a lot of funky things, you can whitelist branches and just say like just test master, and that's it. So build notifications. Whenever a build fails or is successful, you can get notified. By default, most of people use email or IRC. I have this is an example from the Plone API travis.yml file. So whenever a Plone API is built, I get an email plus Travis sends a notification to the Sprint channel on Freenode. This might get kind of spammy in a way if you have a lot of packages, and your Sprint channel can get a bit spammed, but you can set it up in a way that you can tell Travis to either notify you all the time or only when build changes or only when build fails, stuff like that, completely configurable. And you can also set up notifications to other web services such as Campfire and HipChat and what's that, Float Deck or something like modern collaboration thingies. All right, if you want to skip a build because you know something is in there that shouldn't be tested, you just do a CI skip in your commit message, and Travis will see, that build should not be, that commit should not be built. Let's keep that. Also useful. And then you have candy-like browser extensions. This is how it looks if you have the Travis Chrome extension installed and you go on GitHub. You immediately see, okay, this package is on Travis, and apparently the latest code is tested and it passes. It's just eye candy and somewhat useful. Then there are status images depicting the status of your code. And basically what you do is construct a URL containing your GitHub username and your project name or your repository name, and you get an image that shows the current latest status of your build, so you can have like build status passing or failed. It's really cool to have in your read the docs documentation, so you can show everybody that like, this package is tested and you can trust that it will work. And then there's a pull request testing. This is a really big one for me. It's really useful. We've used that in Brazil, in Plone Symposium, South America, when we were working on Plone API. So I told everyone to work in branches. Don't work on master because then it's just a mess up. So everybody worked in branches, and then they did pull request. So pull requests can also be done in the same repository, not only between repositories, but also in the same repository between branches. So a developer would come in and select, I want to work on this particular task, did all the work in the branch, and then did a pull request from that branch to master in the same repository. And we would get notified. And then Travis would actually merge. Of course, if that pull request could be automatically merged, Travis would merge the code and run tests, and then give you and then notify you like this pull request is good to merge because all the tests pass, and you can be quite confident that you can click this merge pull request button and be safe with that. Yeah.
Do you know how Travis or GitHub does this? Can we do things like this with the GitHub API? Can we do this for Jenkins or Jenkins as well? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, as far as I know, that was a kind of a joint collaboration between Travis and GitHub. Initially, what Travis did was just post comments on the pull request, like this like the latest thing passes or fails. But then GitHub integrated them somehow, more like to be more UI.
But you don't know if this API on GitHub is publicly available. So we can just reuse it for the Travis.
That's a good question. I don't know the answer.
That would be awesome.
I mean, we can definitely do comments because, and I mean, they only the Travis. I mean, the UI is like that only for the last couple of weeks. Before that, there were just comments. So you would just get a comment from Travis bot posted a comment that this is good to be merged. That's perfectly fine. I mean, we can do that absolutely. And then, I mean, if enough people start using that, I'm sure GitHub would also integrate that into their UI. Plus, I think that I read something that this is kind of extensible and that you can somewhat use it, but I'm not sure. Am I standing too far away from the mic?
It's okay.
Okay, cool. So yeah, your pull request comes in, Travis merges the code and then runs tests and then notifies you about whether it's successful, that the build was successful or not. And if it's still determining status, you will say it like this. So the build is still running. The Plone builds normally take up to 15 minutes to run. And you will get a merge with caution notification that you should just wait a couple more minutes. So Travis finishes running its tests. And then if it fails, you would again have the notification to merge with caution because Travis build failed. And maybe run the tests locally to see what went on. And then if you use pull requests a lot, like iteratively, so somebody posts submits a pull request and you comment on that and you should fix that, and then there are more commits on that pull request and you comment again and then more commits. You get this nice green and red dots at the right side of the screen, and those are Travis builds. So you would know for each commit that comes into the pull request, you would know whether it failed or it was successful. Besides having the total, I mean the last build status depicted at the bottom. Yeah, like I said, they are accepting. They are now in a beta phase for the Travis CI Pro, meaning that you can have your private repositories tested on Travis. We've had that in our company for about a month or two now, and it just works exactly the same as it worked with public repositories, and it's pretty cool. And they have recently started rolling out subscriptions and actually started charging for the service, like customer by customer. And it's not really known what the price is going to be, but apparently from what I know, it could be quite high. I think they're charging around $130 US for the initial plan, which is kind of expensive, but then again, you don't have the overhead of running your own Jenkins instance, and I mean that saves you time, a lot of time, and in that time you more than make up for that 100 euros. But yeah, the final price is not known yet, and we'll see how that goes. But it will still remain free for public code, so whatever public repository you have, you can test it for free on Travis. So limitations. The biggest one for Plone community is the 15-minute build runtime limit. Because Travis builds everything from scratch every time, that means you have to run the entire build out for your project every time, and that means downloading 300 or so, 200, 300 packages, and that is slow. So you have to take certain measures to speed your build up to be able to have your entire build inside those 15-minute runtime limit. And like I already said, they currently have very basic reporting, so you only get the console output. You can use the after scripts to to like run coverage tests and then upload them somewhere, but it's not like in a really standardized, nice way. So for me, this is currently still a limitation until they come up with some standardized way of pushing reports somewhere. Yeah, so timeouts. I started with Travis in a conference in Munich in February, and like for the first 1 hour of trying it out, my main concern was like the config was up like really fast, enabling the repository really fast, and my main issue was that my tests were failing because I was hitting the back then 10-minute timeout, and the biggest problem was, like I said, network I/O on build-out. After half a year of many people using Travis, build-out has increased in speed a lot. So you should definitely use the latest 1.6 release instead of a 1.4 release, which is default with that comes default with Plone. We've been using it in production for several months. It did not break anything for us, but it's immensely fast. Like instead of running your build out several minutes, it runs it in 20 seconds or something like that. And a big thanks goes to Domen, who actually did all those speed improvements and then poked people around to do a release. So yeah, we should buy him a beer. Is he here? No. The second thing you can do is configure your build out in a way that it's faster. The main thing here is the socket timeout, which by default in build out is 30 seconds. So you're reaching all these URLs where your eggs, where you're pulling your eggs. If an egg is not found, your build out waits for half a minute. And if you have a number of eggs, that just translates into a lot of wait time. So configuring the socket timeout to 3 seconds just increases, again, your build out speed a lot. Besides that, allow hosts, trims the number of URLs you're pinging to a more manageable number, so you get less of those timeouts. And like this is just really, really simple tricks that really speed up your build out. This is used in Plone API, tutorial.todo app. I'm using it in all of my internal projects, so I haven't stumbled into any problems yet. And it increases the build out performance by a couple, in several seconds. Then if you still cannot get your build to run on Travis, you could use ASKO'S trick. ASKO, yeah, that guy. So the idea is that you download the unified installer, which contains most of the eggs you're going to use, and then extract that into your build-out cache, which is a really, really smart trick, because otherwise you have to download 300 separate packages. In this case, you just download one package and extract it, which is way faster than downloading 300 packages. And yeah, I haven't really used that because I don't have the need to, because Travis recently increased the build limit, I think, to almost 20 minutes, so none of my builds are timing out. ASKO, are you using this?
Yeah. So what's the space half the time, I think?
Half the time?
Yeah.
Awesome, yeah. So yeah, if you have a big build, this is one of the things you can try.
13 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, what I want to see in Plone is to have Jenkins and Travis go hand in hand. So I believe that Jenkins cannot go away. We still need Jenkins for the big build out core dev, a big integration build that runs for, I don't know, 20 minutes or something like that. More, 30 minutes, even more. Okay, more than 30 minutes. So that thing runs the entire suite of all tests, and we definitely need that. And I think Eric is using also the Jenkins also for releases and stuff like that. Yeah, so we need Jenkins, and it's going to stay there. But for individual packages, it's so much nicer to have them tested on Travis, because if you're a new developer coming to this certain package that you want to work on, you don't need to run this whole shebang of 300 different tests of 300 different packages, understand what's going on. You're just focusing on that one package and seeing, this went wrong, this is how I fix it. And then when you're done, those tests will still get run in the big integration build, but at a later stage. So you don't have to worry about that at that moment. Yeah, like I said, when you have new developers on projects, it's really cool to have a build on every commit that runs on a clean Ubuntu install, so you know, like, this thing works. It's probably your Python that is broken. You should try to install a different version or try to use the collective build-out Python or whatever to make it running, because if it runs on Travis and if it runs on my machine, it's a really high chance that your computer is the cause of problems. Besides that, if you write non-Plone packages, for example, we do a lot of connections to external APIs, and we always do first like Python library for communication with that API, and then a Plone integration package for that library. And like that Python library, I'm not really, I wouldn't put that on jenkins.plone.org because it has nothing to do with Plone. So I don't have a place to put it. And with Travis CI, you have a place to put it on. Besides that, it's really cool to have publicly run tests for your public packages that are owned by a company. For example, we have nitaweb.click to sell. That's an integration package to connect to some API to provide paid membership for Plone. And we don't want to have that particular product in the collective because we're very much invested in how it should work, and we'd like to keep like overview of how development goes. But we still want everybody else to use it if they want. And if we get new developers on this project, it's really cool that we can point them to like, here are the tests, go check it out. This is why it's broken, this is why it's failing. Because before that we had an internal Jenkins installation, and anybody that was an outsider could not access that Jenkins installation. Yeah, I really went fast through this talk because I want someone from the audience to come up and let's configure a Travis build for him or her. Thank you. Yeah.
What do we need to do to use Travis with projects in the collective? I mean, just given the coordination of having a huge shared repository that not everybody's got complete permissions to.
Tricky question.
What do we want to solve?
Yeah. I think there were already some discussions about that, which I don't know the outcome of, but Travis CI also has an API, and maybe we can have this, like we have the collective script for GitHub, and that could also just say enable, because basically what you do on Travis CI, you just have an off and on button, and you could do that with an API call. So in your repository, when we have the scripts, you would just say enable Travis, and that would do an API call to the script would then go through it and do an API call to Travis to enable your repository, and that should work.
So maybe in the configuration file that sets up all the repositories,
Yes.
it could be aligned at.
Yes. If you have a line enable Travis, then that would.
You would still have to put on the configuration file to each repository, right?
Yes, obviously. Yeah, that just enables Travis. You have to still put the Travis configuration file in a single repository. Yeah, I mean in every single repository that you want to test.
It would be nice to do this automatically for proactive planning.
We would get a lot of broken builds.
Sure.
Because the main problem is that a lot of collective projects don't really have a build out with them, and those that do don't have versions pinned, and
Yeah, but I mean this is a good thing if we like, even if like 2/3 of something of our products break, then at least we can show people that
Yeah.
just don't come with build out
yeah.
and don't have tests or whatever.
Could look for the projects that have Travis YML
Yeah.
in the Travis directory.
Oh yeah. You don't even need the config file. If you have a Travis YAML in your, yeah, then just enable it.
We could integrate it in Plone.org on the pages. For packages that have Travis CI builds. And we should really recommend using Travis CI.
There's nothing to integrate. There's just one URL to a link. You can put in your content.
Yeah, but you can do this automatically. That people don't have
I mean,
to actually copy the page.
the Plone.org product page gets pulled from the ag description, right?
No, you have to upload it. Like packing.
Yeah, but that gets pulled from the ag, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I don't know. I always upload to Pipey. But yeah, this, you have to do manually? Okay, sorry about that. Any more questions? Yeah.
do you have any good ideas for publishing test reports in after scripts somewhere?
No.
Still waiting.
Yeah, I'm basically waiting for Travis guys to come up with a sane way to do that. They've been saying that they're going to do that for a while.
But, I mean, that shouldn't be too hard because we already have the XML, collected XML test report, which gives you the XML files, which Covatura can read. And the only thing you have to do is like upload it and call Covatura to it actually has an HTML output. So it should be really, really easy to do that.
Yeah, that opens your installation up to anyone being able to upload anything.
Why? If you just have these upload scripts,
Yeah.
just trigger something somewhere else, like a script that just grabs the
Oh, yeah.
collected the XML test report output. And
Yeah, but you cannot save the output anywhere.
yeah, sure, you need like on, I don't know, Google App Engine or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. I mean, it's perfectly possible. It's just somebody needs to do it. And I didn't want to lose time yet because I'm hoping the Travis guys would do that very soon. There was another question.
For the time restriction, just to be short, it's only for the build, the 15 minutes. Or is it for building and running the test, or
For the entire build, for the entire thing.
Okay, so
It's-
build up and running the test.
Yes, yes, yes. I read that they increased it to 20 minutes, but like 15 minutes is enough. Like I said, Plone API has been using this for the last 3-4 months, and since we upgraded to build at 1.6 and had that network socket timeout set to 3 seconds, we didn't have any timeouts. So 15 minutes is enough.
Does it work with Bitbucket?
I don't think so. But yeah, that's a valid feature request.
So there's no persistent state at all. These are just the clean Ubuntu images or Ubuntu each time. So you don't need virtualize something like that. It's just the speaker every time.
No, you always get a clean image that has, like, you have Python image and you have Ruby image and you have PHP image, but yeah, you don't. That's one of the problems that if there was some persistence, we can just upload it, like an egg cache up there, but at this point, it's not possible.
The stuff you normally need to install is already there, like GCC, if you need to compile.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pre-installed on the image. Yeah. Anyone else? So does someone want to come up here and we're going to enable Travis CI for their package? Otherwise, we're done. Oh, we have 3 minutes left, so note that. Yeah, if you want to do it, if you need help, just find me. I'll help you set it up. Yeah, thank you for your attention.